Welcome to Digital Phorum. This is Mike Bachman, joined by Peter Coffey. He's from Salesforce. I'm from Boomi, and we're with innovators here preparing for Philadelphia's largest technology conference called Pact Forum. That's the Philadelphia Alliance for Capital and Technologies Forum. It's our marquee technical event that happens in the spring of each year. This year, it is Tuesday, April 22nd at the Comcast Innovation Center in Philadelphia. We still have seats open for attendees. If you are an innovator, investor, entrepreneur, practitioner, we have a seat for you just waiting to be filled. Philadelphia Pact, that's pact.com/forum. You'll register there and use the promo code TDP2025. That's TDP 2025 for a discount. And we look forward to seeing you there. One other person we look forward to seeing as well is our guest today, Avi Patel. Avi Patel is the Chief Marketing Officer and Chief Data Scientist of Fulton Bank. Avi, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Glad to be here. Really looking forward to the conversation. Before we get going, I just want to throw this out there. Whatever I express here, share is based on my own opinions and my own personal work and not reflective of my employer. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
This is going to be a great conversation, and I know you have a lot of innovative ideas. I'm going to lead off a question for you. Avi, AI is everywhere today. It's in probably every facet of our life at this point. How are you thinking about artificial intelligence inside of your everyday life and where you work as well?
I think, when it comes to AI, I like to unpack that with what do we mean by AI, right? The AI has been around for a long time. When I started out in the 90s, we were running logistic regression models, and over the years, machine learning techniques got more sophisticated. So an AI element has been around for a long time. And so today, AI has become a household word because of generative AI, which is a little different from the machine learning techniques that we have been applying for such a long time. So with that, unpacking that, I'll start first with just the good old machine learning element, right? That part of the AI family. There are lots of opportunities for all brands, all industries to leverage that to provide better customer experiences, better product selection, just overall making the customer outcomes better. And so today, so with that said, generative AI obviously brings an element of where, marketers particularly can now start to think about, hey, how can I leverage Gen AI to augment what I'm doing, to help me with what I'm doing, not necessarily do it for the human, right? That's what I see happening, and I expect that to happen even more in the future, where we think about generative AI as a helper to get things done faster or to be able to do even more.
Avi, I really appreciate that you've reminded people that AI wasn't invented with the adjective generative already pre-installed, that we've been doing deductive and inductive AI, predictive AI, now generative AI, maybe making a transition to what I like to call initiative AI, what some people call agentic AI. Is there any point at which you feel we are on a cusp of moving from a power tool for a highly skilled, knowledgeable person to a peer of a knowledgeable person to a job replacer? Or are we really always going to be looking at this as an augmenter of talent rather than a replacement for talent?
So, with everything that I see today, and even with the announcement of Gemini 2.5 just earlier today or yesterday, I believe that we're still far away from replacing anything. I mean, at least, in the world that I work in, I don't think it's yet ready to replace anything. And I believe it's more about augmentation. Companies want to become more effective and more efficient, one of the ways you're going to get more effective is just being able to do a lot more, a lot faster. And so I think that's where the opportunities are. And I really don't believe at this point in time, especially in a highly regulated industry such as banking or in healthcare, that we're ready to replace anything yet.
Personally, I agree with you, and I feel the robots are coming for our jobs is a hugely overstated meme. But you did make a really important point just now about the regulated industries. I'm wondering if the replacement of people by AI is going to be held back or prevented forever by the fact that ultimately a person can be held responsible in a way that an algorithm or a piece of machinery cannot. And especially in a regulated industry, if there's always going to be a need for an identifiable human or agent of a corporation, which is a legal person, to have been ultimately the accountable party for an action or a decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's very philosophical, right? Like, yeah, so you need an actual human being, right? Like, sort of spitballing here, like, will even robots be considered person, right? Like, I mean, so those are, I'll leave that up to the philosophers and many other academic minds to figure those things out. That's why I believe that, today generative AI and even, the good old ML, like predictive AI, is a big help for companies to become more effective in many different ways, especially in marketing. I think about it in terms of how do we deliver better customer outcomes, right? So I think that's where the opportunities are. But, robots and robotics, certainly the innovator side of me believes that there's going to be lots and lots of advancements and improvements there over time. And I'm looking forward to where that leads. What I've seen, in the industry, in the AI out there, it's going to be, I believe that the biggest thing that we could do and should do with the power of AI and generative AI is think about where it can help people from I think about healthcare, right? Like, can generative AI find cures better, can help with, figuring out solutions for a lot of these diseases that we have not been able to solve. So, don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, but I think that's where I think the focus should be. I think for in banking or healthcare or in many other regulated industries, I think it's about being really smart about and thoughtful about how to leverage generative AI and AI in general to provide better customer outcomes.
So can I ask you a quick question, which is that there's a phrase that's sometimes been attributed to Bill Gates, and I think it was ultimately, said by many others, that we overestimate what will happen in the first year, but hugely underestimate the impact over a longer term. And you've been doing this for a while. You didn't, come into this subject in the last year. Is there anything that you were sure would happen more quickly than it has happened, or anything that has happened far more rapidly than you would have expected? To what degree have your expectations been violated by things either happening unbelievably quickly or surprisingly slowly?
Yeah, I would say that, from sometime in the mid 2010s, in 2017, with attention is all you needed, to how quickly we got to Chat GPT in 2021, 2022 timeframe, that did surprise me. And then, sort of looking back, it's like, okay, well, we got a lot of really smart humans out there. The compute was there. The architecture was provided by, attention is all you need, and some other research done by academia. And yeah, that did surprise me how quickly we got to a point where we could provide a prompt into Gemini or Chat GPT and get like human-like answers, right? Like, and in many cases, very precise answers. And that did surprise me how quickly we got there. I mean, it was going in that direction, but then it felt like overnight, wow, there's this portal where I can go in and say, hey, summarize this or help me with this, and it gives very, very much human-like and pretty precise answers.
Does it do that to a fault? Eric Brynjolfsson at MIT talked about the Turing trap, as in Turing test, that because we can get it to have a conversation like a person, we're enjoying the fact that we can make it do that. and maybe failing to take advantage of the possibility that this could do something that people can't do, which is follow multiple lines of thought simultaneously. But we've sort of put handcuffs on it by choking it down to a single thread of conversation.
Yeah. So, I like to remind myself that, the architecture that's been applied here for generative AI is the decoder of part of the transformer, right? It predicts, it's an autoregressive model. Its job is to predict the next token, next
Yeah.
subword, or next word only, right?
Yeah.
So it is, in my opinion, not a thing that really knows anything. It's the power of matrix multiplication that gets you to that next word that's being predicted. So I think we're way far from any sort of a Turing test. And finally, again, this is me spitballing. Well, we are humans. We're carbon based. So you and I, when I say, "Oh my God, that hurt," you know what I'm talking about. Computers are silica based, right? I mean, I don't know how one's going to go around figuring out that there's some real element of general intelligence there. So again, that's my opinion.
So you don't see. I mean, I think it was Roger Schenck at Yale who said this is a 20-year problem, but it's been a 20-year problem for the last 60 years. AGI seems like it's always, oh, we're almost there, oh, we're almost there, and it seems as if it recedes as quickly as we approach it.
Yeah, I just don't know how we would know that it's truly an artificial general intelligence. I think what we can judge is the ability for a machine to do what humans can do, just exactly like humans, right? But do they actually have really true general intelligence?
So task performance rather than some vaguer notion of whatever intelligence is.
Yeah, I mean, we can tweak around the edges. And I'm sure there will be some innovation on architectures that take us even further than what transformer. And today Google uses both transformer and a mixture of expert architecture to get better and better. But it's still an autoregressive model. It predicts the next token. Period.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to have that tattooed where you mirror image on our forehead, so we'll remind it every morning, right?
Yeah. Jan LeCun says, this is a stupid model. And Sam Altman says this is the stupidest model we'll ever see, or the dumbest model we'll see, because going forward, everything's getting smarter and smarter. But still, you have Ben Goertzel who's saying that we're probably not going to get to AGI until some sort of symbolic systems are introduced and really used, something that's more lifelike, and that perseverates truly. But I want to kind of change the tenor of the conversation from the technical to the practical. How, in your day-to-day and what you're seeing inside of a regulated industry, how is AI actually infusing? How is the customer experience getting better over time?
That it still goes back to the old elements of AI, the machine learning. I mean, I don't think we have still yet even really gotten the most out of deep neural nets and all of those things. So I believe that the opportunity is to leverage your tabular data with machine learning and deep learning techniques to better predict what customer needs might be, or what possible customer friction may take place if we did something, right? So I know, as much as we want to talk about Gen AI, to your question, where I see opportunities and where I see some work being done is taking advantage of the traditional AI elements, applying those techniques to our tabular data. All companies have first-party data. There's no, I mean, I have videos that I do on my YouTube channel where I try taking tabular data and working with generative AI to help me find answers within large chunk of data. It does a decent job, but it's still very choppy. So I think I know that the opportunity is still working with those traditional techniques to get even more out of our first party data, to get better at predicting what might happen if we did X, Y, and Z. How can we predict what the customer may need, right? How do we think about using AI to personalize, experience for our customers? And so I will, at this point in time, bring in Gen AI. I believe that this is where Gen AI can help with how it can partner with the traditional AI is, not if we can predict something about the customer, and then if we know a lot about our customer, it should be fairly easy in the near future, hopefully, to be able to then use generative AI to produce landing pages that are personalized for that customer rather than showing a pretty cookie cutter landing page to all customers, right? So I think that's where augmenting generative AI to really, kickstart that in a fast track, producing multiple or dynamic landing pages based on.
So if the tip of the iceberg is generative AI can write a great email for you, the submerged part of the iceberg of make sure it's making the right offer in the right way at the right price at the right time, and that's, you've used the phrase traditional. Wait, Mike, put this in the log. We've almost had the phrase legacy AI come into this conversation. But that submerged part of the iceberg of the non-exciting stuff that you can't do quick, cute party tricks with might actually have a lot left to contribute that we haven't fully exploited yet.
That's right. So like we can have Gen AI kick out emails for us, or subject lines, or content, or even landing pages for us.
Yeah.
But again, to what end? I think the opportunity is looking at that first party data, which happens to be in tabular format, right? And and so we can only apply those traditional machine learning and even some of the more modern neural nets to better understand what that data is saying about our customers, and then action on that. And I think when you action on that, yes, certainly, I think there are opportunities for companies to think about how to leverage generative AI. And I think it's going to be a slow walk for regulated industries, right? So what I just said, I'm hoping we get there, but we have to do those within bounds, right? What we can do as a regulated industry. But I think as we see others doing this, and we'll see third-party vendors who are going to be able to figure this out in a way so that it can make firms and regulators sort of understand exactly how they're applying generative AI to meet those needs. And I just think it's going to be a slower walk than what people think it's going to be.
You've given me a new T-shirt I need to have made, which is, before you worry about AI writing the right words, make sure it's making the right offer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's plenty of opportunities for lots and lots of companies. There's lots we can do there. And so I at least I remind myself, and I remind others, that how much have you done with your first party data, which happens to be in tabular format? You can't use Gen AI there. What have you, what techniques can you use, or have you used to understand customers' wants and needs, and then action on them, right? I think that's where the opportunities are for companies to get more in terms of revenue and better customer experience. So I think that's where it's at.
Within the company, who needs to own this? I mean, Mike occasionally has to put the brakes on me to keep me from going down the technical rabbit hole. Does this need to be owned by the operating departments as opposed to being seen as an IT initiative in a company to make this, to get the focus where you think it needs to be?
Well, again, in generalities, right? I think this is driven by sort of more of the strategic plans that companies will put together, right? They need to incorporate this very intentionally into their strategic plan, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year plans that says, how do we monetize data, right? Like that's what it's about. And then, once you have sort of an objective like that, hey, monetize data, then you can go underneath that and start to say, what are the strategies and tactics to get there? And I think it takes pretty much all the functions to come together to fulfill on that objective, monetize data.
So the next T-shirt is, AI is not your plan. AI might support your plan.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I would say AI is making your people more human, and your humanness is what makes the plan better for AI. That would be on my T-shirt, I think, based on what you're saying here and what we've talked about before. Avi, one last question for you, and then we have to cut it short for today, unfortunately. The last question is, what are some gaps that are going to get, from where we are now with technology? What are some gaps we need to shore up with AI, with data, with people, with plans, all of that?
Yeah, I think there are a few things. mention this couple here. One is companies are going to have to think about training up their employees, right? So just because a handful of people within any company may understand what this is and how to take advantage of it, but to really get the most out of it, you got to bring all the other team members up the change curve. And so, I think it's about really educational element for companies to think about how do we get employees to understand AI and how it helps with that objective of monetizing data, and how we all have to know something about it in order to get the most out of it. I think it's people related for me, right? It starts there because you can invest in all these technologies, but if we don't have our employees ready to take advantage of it or understand how to and why, and all those things are far more important than just the technologies. And I do think that companies are going to have to start, and I think it's happening, but even more so, start to think about how to, from a technology perspective, how do you take advantage of this? And I think it's going to be more about thinking about cloud computing. I see the cloud computing platforms out there innovating really, really quickly. And I think that's something all companies should be thinking about, is like, hey, how do I fast track? None of us are going to build internally any of these platforms ourselves, or, that's just not, it's really expensive and not going to happen. So how do you actually take advantage of this AI technologies? It's going to be on the cloud. So I think it's people first, and then thinking about what platforms will enable you to take advantage of the AI technologies.
Yeah, people, platforms, those are great things to think about as we move ahead. Said by our guest, Avi Patel. Avi, thank you for joining us today. Peter Coffey and I would like to cordially invite our audience to be at PACT Forum. Again, that's the Philadelphia Alliance for Capital and Technologies. PACT Forum is our marquee conference. We would like to see you there. And again, if you would like a discount in that seat, to take that seat and see a lot of leaders like Avi and many others, go to philadelphiapact.com/forum. That's PHORUM. And you can enter your promo code of TDP2025. We hope to see you there. Avi, thank you for your time today. Peter, thank you for yours as well. And for the rest of you, thanks for spending today with us.